Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar. The subject of it is Radar Analytics Builder. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a new feature we've developed, which basically allows you as a customer to build your own dashboards, in essence. What we're looking to cover, we're going to explain what a custom dashboard is. We're going to do a bit of background into how the data is put together, so data models and cubes, which sounds quite scary, but actually it's pretty straightforward. I'll then cover how best to go about designing and planning your dashboard, so just some kind of hints and tips. And then I'll actually build a dashboard and show you how that works. So we'll just jump straight into the builder there, and I'll be able to kind of configure a dashboard and show you as a customer how to build one. So the first thing to cover really is what is a custom dashboard. So in terms of this, I'll show you within Radar a couple of custom dashboards that I've built for customers. So this is a custom dashboard for falls. So typically out of the box with Radar, you get our standard events dashboard. So hopefully you're finding this really useful, telling you the number of events, how many are open, allowing you to trend over time, etc. However, we kind of understand that this is generic, and that actually as a customer, you might want something more specific. So the entire point of the custom dashboards and the ability to build your own is so that you can end up constructing something that's a little bit more relevant to possibly your organization and what you like to report on. So this example here is one I did for a customer in terms of the number of falls they were having. So this was taking data from a custom cube, which I'll explain later, but basically allowing that customer to build something that's more relevant to the falls that they're seeing in their organization. So here you can see we're looking at the number of falls, we can see the fall reasons behind it, contributing factors, again, trends, types of falls. So you get the idea. It's the ability for you to be able to construct something outside of the normal dashboard, outside of the standard dashboards we give you within Radar. So when we talk about building custom dashboards, these are built on what's called data cubes or data models. So the idea behind this, I'll try not to be too complicated, but basically it takes all of the information you have within your organization. So at the moment, if you imagine those as just lots and lots of events, and then it structures it in a way that allows you to quickly, one, build the reports, but also quickly allows the dashboard that you end up creating to query the results. So here, for example, we might have millions of records around events and things that are happening within the organization. And we take that data and we basically turn it into what's called a data cube. So if you see here on the left-hand side, we've got complaints, falls, wounds, safeguardings, we've got the locations, and then we've got a date time frame in there as well. So if you think about it in its simplest sense, putting the data into the cube means you can quickly get an answer. So for example, I know that in 2010, there were 996 falls at location 4. So the system's not having to work that out. So the point of a cube is really to take the data that you're capturing at an organization level and then to build it in a way that makes it quick to query, quick to analyze. In terms of the types of data models, there's basically 3 types. So there's a Radar cube. So what this means is it's basically Radar's standard data set. So it would contain all of what we consider to be the core data, including any tags. And there's a cube that exists for every single module. So if you were going to build a custom dashboard and you've used a Radar cube, you would only be able to build a dashboard that contained the data that we consider to be standard. You've also got the option of what's called a custom cube. So this is basically where you can configure this. So you can come to us and say, right, okay, what I would like is, I would like all the normal Radar fields, but in addition, I would like to pick out some, maybe some particular fields from within a form, or perhaps you want some custom calculations in there as well. So for example, one of your processes might be step 2 of a workflow to step 3 of a workflow. So as standard, that doesn't exist in Radar's cube, you would add that to your custom cube and you would add that as a calculation. So you'd be able to work out things like a deadline and how long it took you to complete a particular action. The last type of cube is basically where you would bring in data from sources externally to Radar. So a good example of this might be something like occupancy data. So you may have a system somewhere that's capturing that occupancy data, and you might want to bring that into your custom cube so that you can look at benchmarking the number of events you're having based on the size. So maybe it's based on occupancy rate, bed days, staff, that type of thing. So it's those 3 options, basically Radar cube, it's the type of data Radar use day to day, and it's the data that Radar use to build our dashboards. Custom cube You're configuring something based on things that are specific to you as an organization, things like fields in your forms, and then external data. You're bringing in data from a source that's external to Radar. So before we dive into the builder and I show you how to actually construct your own dashboard, just cover a couple of points. One is, the purpose of the dashboard. So why is it that we're wanting to build these dashboards in the first place? So I quite like this infographic because it gives you a good illustration of how the data, so the kind of lowest level here, the things that you're capturing within Radar, should, if you're building the dashboards correctly and you're designing them with an outcome in mind, enable you to improve what's going on within the organization, whether that's improving patient safety, improving your brand, for want of a better word, reducing claims and litigation within the organization, or just generally driving operational efficiencies. So we do help in terms of dashboard design. If you do purchase a builder license, we have sessions with you where we, one, train you on how to use it, but also train you on how best to go about designing a dashboard in the first place. If you design something and you're not designing it with the outcome in mind, you're not ensuring your KPIs, for example, are driving an action, you're not getting insights from the dashboards and the data that you're using, then ultimately you're not going to be successful with that. So what we do is we have dashboard planning sessions with you. We've got kind of tips and tricks and documents and all that kind of good stuff. But broadly, it's in the nicest sense, before you jump in and start designing something within Radar, start on paper, understand what your outcomes are, understand what's the business action we're trying to drive from this information, and then that will help you drive the best way to visualize it. So don't worry too much if you're not an expert on dashboard design. We can kind of hold your hand, for want of a better way of explaining it, to make sure that you're designing something that ultimately is going to be useful for you as an organization. And I'll show you when it comes to the builder, it's very easy for you to be able to kind of construct and build your own dashboards. I'll just jump straight in now and I will do a demonstration of the builder. So Radar Analytics Builder license is accessible over the web. So there's no install. It's same as Radar. You just basically need internet access to be able to use it. You get your own login, and in terms of licensing, it's based on per seat. So by that I mean per user. So each individual would have its own license. That individual would have a login and a password. Typically, for most organizations, you only really need one user. You only really need one seat. So think of this as being the person who's going to go off and design that charting for you. So I'm going to log in. And basically at the moment, it's going to present me with an empty screen because there's nothing that I've constructed as yet. On the left-hand side, you can see we've got a folder there called testing. So this is the structure. This is where you're going to be able to construct the areas in which your dashboards live. When I come to show later on how the permissions are assigned and how we share these dashboards with the end users, this will make a little bit more sense. But think of this as almost grouping the different dashboards you're going to create, grouping the things that you're then going to assign out to end users. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new dashboard. So it's literally as simple as clicking on the plus, and then it's giving me some options. And the one I'm going to pick is new dashboard. It's now asking me for a data source. So if we remember what I spoke about a couple of minutes ago, this is where we're talking about these cubes. So now you're going to pick the data source, the cube that you're going to use to build your report on. So I've got a test one in here, which I'm just going to leave as it is. And I'm going to give my dashboard a title. And again, this title would be the title that the end user sees. I call it my first dashboard. And so the screen we can see now is basically the builder. So this is where I'm going to go about constructing my new dashboard. So welcome to your dashboard. It's asking me to create a widget. So by widget, it's basically meaning a visualization. So this is going to be a chart or a table or some sort of visualization that's going to contain your data, and that's going to be what the end user sees. So I'm going to select some data. And what it does is it presents me with a list of the tables and the fields that exist within those tables. So here, for example, I've got a table on events, and it's giving me fields such as when was it closed, when was it raised, what type of event was it, what time did the event happen. We just scroll down, what was the location, what time was it raised, what's the reference number, region, location. So this is Radar's standard cube. These are the types of fields that you will get out of the box. There's then another table there which is containing basically the tags, so the things that you might have tagged in terms of locations or fields on a form. So all you do to start to construct a dashboard, you basically select what you want to build your dashboard with. So you can also notice as I'm floating over these different fields, it's giving me some kind of pre-built options. So it's saying if I pick event ID, it's going to do a sum. If I pick event, it's going to give me all items. If I pick time, it's going to give me all items. You've also got the option on the right-hand side there to pick more. So for example, if I wanted to choose event ID, but not a sum, if I click on more, it's going to give me different kind of aggregations. So I can average it, minute, max it, look at the median. So what I'm going to do for this kind of demonstration is try and build kind of quite a basic dashboard, but just really give you an idea about how simple it is. So we're just going to look at counting the number of events. We're going to trend them over a period of time, and then we're going to construct a few filters, and then we're going to look to assign those out to particular users. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pick event UID. So don't worry too much about the different things that I'm picking in terms of the fields. As I say, when you buy the builder license, you will be trained and we'll give you kind of a proper training session on how these things work. So click on event ID. And now that's just going to go off into the database, and it's literally pulling back all of these IDs. So that doesn't really mean anything in the moment. You can also see on the left-hand side, though, it's giving me different types of visualization. So based on the data I've selected, the system's saying, well, actually, you might want to look at visualizing it in these different ways. So you might want to have a look at a pie chart or a column chart. So it's really simple to be able to pick and choose how that displays. If I want to, for example, pick a column chart, again, I just click on that and it's going to change the format of it. So I'm going to go about creating something that's just going to tell us how many events we've had. So I'm just going to dive into advanced configuration. And again, don't worry too much about necessarily what I'm doing in terms of the fields and things I'm picking, more just the concept about how easy it is. So what I'm going to do to begin with is I'm going to choose my visualization. So I'm going to have to start with an indicator. And I'm going to look to add some values in there. So again, all I do is go for the values, click add. It's now going to give me my field list. I want to count the number of events I've had. So for radar, this is the event ID. And it's telling me that there's 454. So it's as simple as that. I've literally just counted the number of events we've had within the system. It's giving me the text in kind of a slightly unfriendly way, because obviously it's just picking out the field and the count that I've done. So if I want to change that to be something that's a more user-friendly description, I literally just click on the text and rename it. So let's call this number of events. And I might determine that actually I don't want the color to be that default color. So I could just click on the change value colors and let's turn that into gray. And then if I click apply, I've literally created a widget there. So if that was the end of my dashboard, I shared that out with my end users, this is what they'd be able to see. So it's really quick and easy to be able to spin up a quick visualization. So we'll keep going. We'll add a little bit more detail in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be a bit lazy. I'm going to copy the one that I've already done. And I'm just going to go in and edit it. And here what I want to think of is actually, I've got my number of events, but I'd be interested to know how that appears across multiple different locations. So I don't want an indicator anymore, so I need to change my chart type. So the best way of visualizing the difference between something is, in this case, probably a bar chart or a column chart. And because we want to look at kind of high to low, it's probably best to do a bar chart. So if we click on that. So I've changed the visualization, so it's instantly giving me a bar chart now. It's just counting the number of events because I've got nothing to split it by. I've not broken it by anything. So I need to add in a category. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to click on the add again. And again, it's giving me my fields. So I'm going to search for location. It's giving me a number of different options there. So I'm familiar with the data. So I know that the one I want is the location field there. And so now what that's done is it's bringing me back a count of all of the different events across the different locations that I've got. So it's quite a nice chart, but actually I really want to know is highest to lowest. So in that case, I can just go in on my number of events and I can go, actually, I want to sort this descending. And so it's changed the chart now and it's telling me the one that's got the most at the top and the least at the bottom. So again, that's really good, but actually what I might want to do now is I might want to add some design onto it. So rather than me having to look at that and then think, all right, okay, there's about 130, it might be nice to have a value label on it. So in terms of the builder, the left-hand side is always where you construct the data, always where you're going to kind of choose what chart type it is. choose what fields you want in the chart. Right-hand side is, how do I design it? How do I change the colors? How do I make it more usable for that end user? So here, for example, I'm going to leave it as gray, but actually I just want a value label in there, so the user doesn't have to count. If I click apply, what I've done now is I've now created another visualization. It's a bit small, so it's really hard for users to read that. So actually we probably want to create a little bit more space. So in terms of the design of the dashboard, now that I've created some widgets, I've got the option to be able to drag them around the screen. So I can then move them around to somewhere that I think will be more useful for the end user to end up reading them and understanding them. Here, for example, we probably want some more vertical space. So I just hold on to the bottom of that particular widget and I'll drag that down. And so now we've got a lot more space to play with, and that becomes a lot more readable. So we've created a couple of visualizations, one giving us the number of events, another one giving us a league table. Now we might want to trend over a period of time. So I'm just going to copy this. It's not really a nice layout anymore, so I probably want to give it more space. So I'll just drag that to a different place on the canvas. You can see here again, it's kind of, I need to probably smarten this up. So if I go in and click on distribute equally in the row, it's just going to tidy that page up for me. So I'm just going to go in, I'm going to edit this chart. And what we want to look at here is we want to trend something over a period of time. So typically the best way of doing that is a line chart. I'm just going to get rid of location, I'm going to change it to a line chart. Plotting the number of events, and now I need to put my x-axis in, which is going to be time in this case. So if I pick date and time of the event, so now it's just dropped in the date and time of the event, in this case in years. So I'll change the sorting, so it sorts it from oldest to newest. So there we've created quite a simple trend chart. If I want to design this, if I want to kind of, again, make it a little bit easier for people to read, then again, I'm through to the right-hand side here. So I'm not keen on the straight line there, so I want to make it smooth. I want to make the line a little bit thicker so it's easier for people to be able to read. I also probably want some markers on so people can see where the different values are. Again, they're not quite clear, so maybe I want to make those hollow. And then if I click apply, I've now just created a really simple line chart. So that's how easy it is to create visualizations. In terms of things like the filters, it's very similar. So if I just open up the filter option, at the moment, there are no filters in there at all. So again, think of the construction of the dashboard as being, you're constructing the things that somebody's going to interact with, but you're also going to be constructing the filters people will use as well. So here, for example, I might want to filter on the date and time of event. So I'm going to add in date and time as a filter for the users. And I can choose what the default is. So here, for example, I can pick a list, I can pick a calendar, I can pick a time frame. Ideally, time frame is probably the easiest one to use. So here, for example, I'm going to say, we're going to have our default as the last year, so the last 360 days. So that's now giving my end user the option to be able to filter on it. You can see because I did my chart based on the years there, it's got rid of all the other years because obviously I'm only looking at the last 360. I'm going to add in location because my users might want to filter on location. So again, it's giving me the options of all the different locations. So now, again, I think the end user is going to be using this dashboard. They're able to go in and go, actually, I'm only interested in any events that happened at alpha location. So I've built the dashboard and now I want to share it with the end users. So at the top here, you can see I've got the option to share. So I built something that I'm happy is going to be usable. I'm going to click share. I basically just share that, and this will give you your organization there. So I'm going to click save there. And so now that I've shared that, I called it my first dashboard. If we actually go into Radar, you'll see that the option exists now for another permission. So these are the standard dashboard permissions, so events, action plans, audits, etc. But because we've created a custom dashboard, there's a new option called custom dashboard permissions with one dashboard in it, which is my first dashboard. And you go about sharing this dashboard in the same way as you would with any other permissions in Radar. So you go in and you say, okay, this dashboard, I would like the analytics users to be able to see that. You click save. And then slightly differently to the rest of Radar, because the dashboards, the analytics build overnight, is these users would get access to the next day. But basically, it's the same process you would use for assigning permissions for the rest of Radar. So that's basically how easy it is to use the builder license. So kind of conceptually, hopefully it makes sense. As I say, this is not meant to be a training session, but I just wanted to show how easy it is to construct something. Yes, it's a very simple dashboard. but it took me, best part of 5 minutes, and then the ability to be able to share that out with the end users. So hopefully that makes sense. If you are interested in the builder license, we'll give some contact details at the end of the webinar. Will you be able to contact us and express interest, and then we'll kind of pick it up from there. But I hope you found this useful. Thank you.